And just one thing I want to touch on again, because you talked about the fasting and you talked about the, being able about assisting the body with going into apoptosis, the AMPK and things like that. And say they are in this space where they do get hypoglycemic, so they do have to eat those every 4 to 5 hours. And so they're not really giving them so it's like, is that enough time for those processes to take place in between, or do there need to be longer stints in that fasting for somebody to get those benefits?
So that's a good question. So, the difference between 2 to 3 and 4 to 5 is huge. The difference between 2 and 5 is huge. Not just mathematically, but because, as I say, the amount of catabolic, apoptosis, AMPK activity that's going on if you're eating every 2 hours is almost none. The amount that could be going on after 5 hours is way more, right? So I would say, 5 hours, 6 hours, like I'm recommending, there's still plenty of catabolic activity going on. Now, of course, it depends on your definition of plenty. To someone who recommends month-long fasts, there's not enough going on.
Yeah.
And so that's where, again, it's a question of compromise. It's a question of what your priorities are. And this is a tricky thing. What your priorities are, and then also what your priorities should be, given what your challenges are. So this is a tricky thing in the whole health world, is there are a lot of charlatans out there, but there are also a lot of well-meaning people out there who really do want to help, but who are giving very dogmatic advice about how to be better based on their own experience, and often based on the experience of other people, many other people that they've maybe worked with or trained with or whatever. But because of that, they kind of globalize it. They make it universal, like, therefore it's good for everyone. And there are no exceptions are often treated with, like, hostility or ignored or something like that, because it breaks the spell of this is the thing to do. So everything I just said could apply as much to the people who say eat every 2 hours as to the people who say it's good to fast for a month, right? People on both sides will say this is the right way, and the other one is completely wrong. So I would more question, like, there are benefits to each. If your goal is to fire up your metabolism, if your goal is to really get into an anabolic state, you need to build muscle for whatever reason. Remember, muscle is not just showing off and going to the gym. Muscle is what your heart is largely composed of. It's what your digestive system is largely composed of. So a lack of muscle mass is one of the things that often leads to injuries, which then quickly lead to death in elderly people. So muscle is not just vanity. Muscle is an essential part of your body. It's a great predictor of longevity. So muscle is really important, right? So if you need to be in that stage of having more of muscular and muscles also use up more energy, burn fat, which is why people who want to lose fat often pursue them. So there's so many benefits to muscle. So are you going to be in an anabolic state and put on muscle and increase your metabolism and create more cellular energy while going for a long periods of time without eating? No. Is it a good idea to go for long periods of time with eating to get in a catabolic state, burn a bunch of fuel that may be in your body, like, for instance, fat, and get rid of the toxins, get rid of the dead cells as a result of being heavily into that catabolic process? Do many people do that and have a really great result, maybe recover from some kind of disease, recover from some kind of crippling condition? Yes. So it's like, what's a good idea? Eating frequently or fasting for long periods of time? Both. It really depends on what your goals are. But be aware of what the benefits and also drawbacks are of each. I will say that particularly being in an anabolic state, maybe I haven't mentioned this yet. So being in an anabolic state of never being in a catabolic state absolutely is associated with reduced longevity if it's excessive. This is one of the things, like, this is the bodybuilder thing, right? They are trying to be as anabolic as possible. They tend to be eating really, really frequently. And I think some of the top teachers in that space these days, they acknowledge, look, if you do that, you may look great by their definition. Maybe you wouldn't agree, Chrissy. But you are not probably going to live as long unless you're on top of a lot of other things. So this thing, mTOR and AMPK, which is this anabolic genetic pathway and this catabolic genetic pathway, is absolutely true that increased AMPK, the catabolic pathway, is associated to longevity. In fact, it's so much the case, a lot of people went whole hog with that and, decided to fast extensively, regularly, and go on a pure keto diet with very low carbs and low protein, because all of that stimulates AMPK, only to end up in a different mess from going overly catabolic. So I know it sounds almost cliche, but balance really is the key, unless you're very imbalanced already. And then you got to do the thing that will bring you back into balance. So if you've been heavily anabolic, putting on more and more weight, eating constantly, never giving your body a chance to do its cleaning processes, then periods of fasting, especially under supervision, could be life-changingly beneficial for at least a while. And ditto, if you've been catabolic for a long time, maybe you've been dieting a lot, maybe you have had digestive problems and therefore haven't been able to consume very much, maybe you're very high in stress chemicals and that means you're not hungry that frequently, maybe you've been taking stimulant drugs or other drugs that make you not hungry, then you might need to go to the other extreme and eat really frequently to try and get your metabolism going again, right? So the thing is, we can't go from being completely imbalanced to being balanced by acting balanced. Sometimes if we're completely imbalanced, we have to go the other way to then get into a state of balance. But there's a huge difference between embracing a fasting lifestyle or embracing a metabolism boosting lifestyle for a while because you want to get back into balance versus this is the way to be. And I think what I see, the people with a metabolism boosting lifestyle who take it too far, is they tend to end up overweight, honestly. Because yes, it's true that when you boost your metabolism, you can eat a lot more calories without gaining weight. But you know what? It's easy to still eat too many calories when you have a really fast metabolism, unless you're really going for it in terms of physical exertion as well, like I mentioned earlier. And then on the other side, there's loads of people who, do the more fasting, calorie restriction path who end up, really underweight, really stressed, really exhausted, really depleted, malnourished. So, yeah. It really depends where you're coming from as to what direction you go to. And then even then, don't think, oh, fasting didn't work, eating frequently works, I got to eat frequently now for the rest of my life. It's like getting back into balance and then ultimately staying in balance. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Rejuvenate podcast. If you want to watch the full episode that came from, just click on the link above. Or if you just want to watch our latest video, then click the link below. And make sure you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you.